ESPON does support a more streamlined approach to policy making at all those levels, simply because what ESPON does is it provides information in a very accessible way, in a visual way, in a way that's very easily understood by policymakers, by stakeholders, and the experience with it so far is that it has been quite successful. I think Europe needs ESPON at this particular moment because Europe, compared with 10 years ago, 15 years ago, is much, much more complex territorially. It's much more diverse. The challenges are arguably even greater and more complex. So we need better information. We need better targeted, joined up information at the territorial, at the spatial, at the environmental, at the labour market and at the sectoral level in order for us to use the limited resources we have in Europe to make life better for the citizens. It's as simple as that. It's important for social cohesion, for economic cohesion. The big thrust of Europe over the next 7 or 8 years will be achieving the goals of Europe 2020. Smart, sustainable and inclusive growth. And that requires, I think, operation on a number of fronts. It requires greater levels of coordination within member states, within regions, between metropolitan areas and regions, and among the member states. And might I also say that one of the major ways in which this cohesion is to be achieved is through the greater use of so-called macro-regional strategies, where you will have large numbers of countries. Well, I think ESPON does support economic and monetary unions because it enables better policy making now and in the future. And an economic and monetary union in Europe, it only works if you get greater integration, if you get greater cohesion right across Europe. So I think ESPON is an important tool in consolidating and developing economic and monetary union in Europe. A more sustainable economy in Europe can only be built and sustained by the better use, more efficient use of scarce resources. The whole idea of ESPON is to find out where the constraints are, find out where the problems lie, and to try and identify, or to help policymakers to identify ways of solving those problems. And I think my own view is that it's probably the most efficient way of doing that. So, you know, I think it has great potential.